Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with raregem-productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to excite your entrepreneurial mindset and create pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy-Maxfield.
And I'm Dr. Cheryl-Watkins-Moore. I am the BioSTL's Inclusion Initiative lead for our region here. Hello, Miss Christy.
How are you today, dear?
It is a wonderful rainy day in St. Louis, but I'm doing okay.
Everybody looks so cute and fashionable, and I went for totally practical. But that's how I am. If you know me, I'm going to have the comfy shoes on. I'm going to have the practical jeans on.
Nobody can see you in the podcast.
I know. But if you need to know, folks, Cheryl is the fashion plate. I'm the practical Jane. But we're glad you're here no matter what you're wearing, no matter how you come to the podcast. We're delighted that you're listening. We don't even care
what you're wearing.
Well, yeah, let's not go into that. That's just a slippery slope.
You're sitting in your room.
Doing your thing on your time. Right. And we're really glad to be with you. Yes. And we really hope that you continue to share the love with the folks in your world who also enjoy the podcast. So we want to thank you for listening, and we want to thank our founding sponsors, BioSTL and CET, for their renewed and continued support. Yes. We are back at it now in August. You'll be listening to us this fall, and we'll be doing things like the Vision Symposium that BioSTL does. Yes. We've got, we'll be well into the Square One program at CET. When we just, lots of things going on. So make sure you're checking out their website and staying up to date. And please share the podcast with your friends. They can find us. You can find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts, on iTunes, Spreaker, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are, we want to be.
Absolutely. So, a brilliant man, Albert Einstein, said, "You can't solve a problem on the same level that it was created. You have to rise above it to the next level." Really?
Yes.
Our guest today has risen above and has taken solutions in branding beyond the next level to a place of unmistakable. His work has won awards, the IFFY Awards, an honor given by IFFY Worldwide each year for the most effective marketing communication ideas. He's won at cons as well, which he says proves he has a right and a left brain. I hope so.
I hope I've got one too. I have no awards that attest to it. Not a one.
He leads with an insatiable curiosity for all things interesting and purposeful. His leadership coaching course, Why Would Anyone Trust You to Lead?, has garnered substantial praise as it explores key leadership principles with emphasis on how to build a voluntary following. Sebastian-Mueller-Soppart joins us as we come back. So stay listening.
CET, the Center for Emerging Technologies, is a proud founding sponsor of this Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. We want you to know all about the great things they are up to. Square One offers 2 training options. Square One Ignite, a 4-week program created to help founders quick start their business model validation process. Or Square One Bootcamp, an in-depth 10-week, 50-hour program that combines formal instruction with hands-on learning, networking, and mentoring. To learn more about Square One Bootcamp or Square One Ignite, visit CETSTL.com. And for your renewed and continuing support, CET, we say thank you.
I'm Sebastian-Mueller-Soppart from Manifest, and entrepreneurially thinking to me means curiosity, conviction, passion with stamina.
Joining us today is Sebastian Mueller-Soppart, EVP and Executive Creative Director for Manifest. Manifest makes brands unmistakable to the core of their audiences. They specialize in content creation that garners interest and fuels loyalty on platforms that delivers a distinct experience with precisely measured value. That's a lot of words. We're going to have him unpack that.
Exactly.
Because I'm not quite sure. It's
nicely written. I love it.
It is. It's beautiful. And now we're going to give it meaning.
Yes.
He is, as Cheryl said, he's motivated by the power of good ideas and has led creative leadership positions in Europe, Latin, and North America, and built these highly collaborative, multidisciplinary environments. He's also been part of Techstars, which is one of the premier accelerators within the startup community, and has worked as an entrepreneur and with entrepreneurs. So we have a lot to talk to you about. So thank you so much for joining us, Sebastian.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so happy to be here. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to match your spirit here.
Well, we bring it. This room, a lot of things happen in this room. Right. Today, meditation is not it. So, but yes, everything that happens in here is only between us and about 21,000 plays and downloads. And growing, right? So, what is Manifest? I knew it when it was still as Manifest Digital, but you dropped the digital. At least when you talk about yourselves now.
Yeah, we did actually. I joined Manifest about a year ago. Okay. So I don't have all that context and history of the company. But we are, in simple terms, we're a content marketing agency.
Okay.
We do a lot of digital. We do a lot of social content development, whether there's articles or videos, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So you said you joined a year ago. Where were you before? Talk to us about your background.
I was with a small ad agency called Leo Burnett in Chicago.
Oh, just a little tiny one. Yeah. Okay, everybody who doesn't know that this is a huge global entity. Okay.
Right. So I spent 27 years with them, across the different continents. So, and lastly, the last 8 years prior to joining Manifest, I was creative director for the region of Latin America.
Okay. And Sebastian looks like he's only 30. So he's spent 27 years. He was 3 years old, guys, when he started.
Well, Latin America brings the spice and energy there. So having spent 27 years in marketing, what is it about being at Manifest now after 27 years at this huge company that is exciting and intriguing to you?
Well, truth be told, it's really the location, because I fell in love with a girl from Louisville who's close by, and the next best thing for me as far as new position was here in St. Louis. Okay. This is what opened the door to it. But what I really like is and it's not even rehearsed for this podcast, but it's the entrepreneurial spirit of that company. Mm-hmm. We're about like 160, 170 people across 5 different offices, and I'm being part of the leadership team of that office or of that organization is something that Leo Burnett in its bigness wasn't really able to give me. So I really like helping grow that office. So did you grow up in South America, or how did you get this link to South America? Talk to us about where Sebastian started from. I started in a hospital in Frankfurt. Okay, let's move forward from that. Okay. Oh, but you started in... I'm German. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But always had a love for Latin America. Germany is a little too perfect. It's boring, therefore. I do tend to like chaos, and Latin America is great for that.
It is, I think, a specialty.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I like moving pieces, parts and pieces.
So did you live in South America at all? Or for about 11 years. Wow. Mm-hmm. In what area? I spent about 3.5 years in Brazil, 2-3 years in Mexico, 2 years in Colombia, and a couple of years in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So were you doing communications, branding on that side? Exactly. I was guiding the Leo Burnett's creative across Latin America. Okay.
That's exciting.
Right.
And many of us have been wooed to this region thanks to a man or a woman with whom we fell in love with. So we're really glad to hear that love brought you to the Midwest.
Too. Yes.
Right. None of us are from here.
Right.
And we all fell in love with somebody who brought us. How has your work transcended your geography? The work of being using your right brain and your left brain. What do you see as some of the transferable parts of the work that you do, whether it's the creative that you're developing for a given market, or the kinds of companies that you've worked with? what has been the through thread, in 27 years of being in Chicago and South America and
how
points
are you
in between?
Here? Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. Latin America needs a lot more left brain, a lot more organizing than what you would have in Germany or in the US, right? Because it is a little chaotic. And then as you move up that corporate ladder, you move away from purely creativity to also, managing people, managing clients, and into office dynamics. So
is that why Manifest was attractive to you? Because it got you back closer to the creative side of it?
Yes and no. The creative for sure, but at the moment I'm spending, just like at Leo Burnett, I want to say I spend about 50% on creative, on the work itself, and the other 50% on, building teams, growing people, fostering client relationships and that kinds.
So what does that look like in an entrepreneur? You described Manifest as more entrepreneurial. What does it mean to build teams across 5 offices, 140, 160 people? And
I want to say the biggest challenge that we have is collaboration, because we pride ourselves as being extremely good at collaboration across these 5 offices. And so I have a little experience with that, across Latin America, but it is very challenging. I was just trying to update, just before getting here, I was trying to update a 1 gigabyte deck online, and I had obviously trouble doing it. It just didn't really show up, and it's just so that there's still limitations.
So the technology is one, right, and then the interpersonal dynamics, I would imagine, as well, are challenging to collaboration.
Absolutely. I mean, luckily we don't have to deal with time zones, but it is a problem for sure.
So are you dealing with a lot of startup companies here, mid-size or big corporates? What's your portfolio look like?
Manifest portfolio consists of clients like Purina, Alamo, Staples. Those are the big ones that are coming to mind.
Are you guys helping some of our startups that have some money to pay you?
Think through their
right, and it's not equity that you're taking, but how are you guys looking at the entrepreneurial community here?
Manifest doesn't really look at the entrepreneurial community. I mean, we're in the middle of it because we feel like we are sort of a startup in our own right, and we love the energy that's around us here at Cortex. But it's more on a personal level that I get involved with startups, just like I've done in Chicago prior. You guys mentioned Techstars, so I've been a mentor there for a number of years, and so it's really more of myself, and I have my own startup, and so I'm really liking it.
What was your startup?
It was a very ambitious project, a crowdsourcing platform for brands to crowdsource ideas, not executions, just ideas. So if, let's say, Coke wanted to launch a chocolate-flavored Coke or something, and they wouldn't want to go to their regular shop for ideas because maybe it's a little bit more of the same every time, I created this platform that had about 500 people like myself to compete for the prize money.
That's very cool. How long has that been in existence, and when did you start, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, well, I started about 6 years ago, worked on it for about 4, and just couldn't make it happen. Like, I underestimated the sales job, even though I thought I wasn't naive about it, but I'm more of a creator, and then once it was kind of done, I was kind of out of breath, let's say. It's called Colossal Spark. It's still floating around the internet like a ghost ship. So, if anybody wants to check it out.
But you have, I think you've been challenged with, you see what some of these startups come up with, and because you've lived it. That's what I'm saying. So.
Exactly. I do think that entrepreneurs do appreciate me, just like how students in a university would appreciate a teacher who actually has experience in the field that he or she's teaching. And so I think that applies to myself.
And that lends credibility to your mentoring, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. I can relate to the challenges.
So you underestimated the sales job. Did you underestimate selling it to the customer or selling it? It's a two-sided market, right? Selling it to the creatives to participate, to the brands to throw their hat in the ring, to the investors to put their money up on the table, or all of the above?
No. I had a very sort of successful campaign towards my peers. I sent out 1,500 individual invitations to join. A third did. That's amazing. Which was pretty amazing. I thought so too. And I did not speak to investors because I was going to go like friends and family. That's what I'm going to do.
Bootstrap.
Yeah, I tried. And so the sales job that failed was towards brands. I mean, I was targeting the big brands who are always hungry for new ideas, even if they don't use them.
Right.
I didn't really care because I've produced so many ideas that ended up in the waste bin in my career that I felt like, well, these guys, for 5, 10, 20 grand. Yeah. Sure, we want more ideas. This is great.
Right.
And everybody told me, this is to me a tip for any entrepreneur, is if your friends or potential clients are telling you that the idea is great and you should do it, you can't believe it. Right. You have to find a way to put it out there, right? The idea, test it, fake it, whatever it is. You need traction before you can truly believe
because
that. Everybody
will tell you, "Oh, it's great, go ahead, do it."
Exactly.
But will they pay for it? Right.
Exactly.
Wow. So that's interesting. So then you got here with Manifest. You're building brands for large companies. What do you see here that's different by being here in Manifest versus being at a huge firm? Are the opportunities same, different? Expectations different with the companies that you're working with?
Marketing is interesting. I struggle a little bit with the whole industry in general because nobody wants to see ads, right? And I kind of hate it too. Like if I, encounter,
marketing is changing too.
If I'm encountering an ad on the radio, I want to get away from it. Right. If I have to wait a few seconds for a pre-roll to end, I'm like, Right. So nobody wants it, and prior though with the Leo Burnett, in the Leo Burnett world, the brand problems and brand building initiatives were just bigger, and therefore seemed more important than maybe what I do now. Because we're doing content, right? Content is not, unless you're really in it, it's not seen as much as, let's see, a TV spot or a print, national print campaign. But I've always been the kind of person who looked at, marketing problems in equal terms. Like I can get really excited about a small idea as much as I can get excited over like a big campaign.
So you're not doing campaigns anymore. You say content. Can you tell our listeners, what does that mean? How is that different for folks who are not in this space?
Well, it's a lot more about experience, engagement versus ads, right? I mean, ads in the traditional sense are
talking to
one
me
way.
Or at me, right?
Exactly. And it was always very hard to measure, whether any of this was effective or not, So I think that's the main difference. We're counting likes versus what organizations tell us of how many people have tuned in to watch it on TV.
But the engagement is still the bottom line, is actually getting folks to interact with the brand, to share what their thoughts and feelings are, to share how they use it. All those types of things are ways you can measure the effectiveness of the idea.
Exactly. And I'm not, even though I think we talked about left brain, right brain, so I'm, a little bit of a left brain or trained left brain, let's say, but I do not get into analytics, but there's a lot of analytics around me. So I know that the intelligence around content and the way that data informs creative briefs, so that we as creatives truly create stuff that matters, is pretty amazing.
Cool. Well, we're going to come right back and continue that part of the conversation.
BioSTL is a proud founding sponsor of this entrepreneurially thinking podcast, and we want you to know all about the great things they are up to. BioSTL Fundamentals is an entrepreneur development program targeted to founders wishing to start a company in the bioscience space, including therapeutic products, diagnostic products, medical devices, animal and crop agriculture products, and research tools. Participants earn resources by achieving specific coaching goals. You can learn more about BioSTL Fundamentals by visiting biostl.org. And for your renewed and continuing support, BioSTL, we say thank you.
So, Sebastian, you had talked about how you really moved from campaigns to content. How is it that the world has changed from sort of the old school to the new school, and that influx, that need for new ideas, that constant need for new ideas? How does that, forgive the pun, manifest itself in your work today?
Obviously, it's all about behaviors that have changed, right? I mean, the idea that this newer generation is not consuming television, nor is it reading, ink on paper. So
Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you get to them on Instagram?
That's exactly it. And so instead of, at some point, marketers thought they can guide the consumers and kind of have an influence about where people are consuming their content and therefore ads, but it has shifted where consumers are just kind of running after, where technology is going.
Well, technology changed that. I mean, I've been in marketing for, I'm not going to tell you how many years, but a long time. And you're absolutely right. The market shifted. And especially with these younger people, they don't read a magazine. They're not on TV. Netflix is a big player. Snapchat, and like you said, you've got to find out what appeals to them because
What I find interesting is that I'm sure it's been talked about and everywhere, but it just sort of dawned on me more recently is that the world is going to be more and more divided in their consumption, meaning that those who have money to pay to opt out against the ads will do that. Right. If you look at Spotify or whatever, right? You pay $10 a month to have the ad-free environment. Right. And that's happening everywhere. And so you'll have these two these two different worlds.
Right.
I think that's going to get
which affects the business model of the company. How do I monetize the content, right? I either have to sell it, the ad space to somebody, or I've got to get people to subscribe. And then it changes the way that the creatives have to actually develop the creative and deploy the creative. So it's having an impact on all sorts of things.
As a marketer, you have to be very careful when somebody tells you, we have an audience of X. This is the demographic that we have. You have to be very careful to understand who's opting in and who's opting out, because that will totally divide your target audience.
Is there a way, if I'm a new startup and I'm getting advice from people like me that says know your customer and talk to your customer, and like you said earlier, when your friends and your family and even your close colleagues say this is a great idea, go out and verify and test the concept there. Is there a way when I'm that small and the idea is that new that I can get a handle on who might opt in or out of where I want to be and how I want to be in front of them?
Well, I think in the entrepreneurial space, we're always talking about solving real problems and really looking after market fit, right? So, I obviously totally agree, and I've learned from some conversations with investors that investors are truly looking at, well, obviously the team, like who they are. We can talk about leadership and those kind of skills a little bit later. But on the other side, looking at this small core audience that's actually using or consuming whatever you have to offer versus, let's say, thousands who have somehow magically opted in, right? I mean, maybe similar for your podcast, I don't know. You talk about, it's a lot of people, but then how many of them are truly waiting for this to come out, you know?
You're right. I mean, and so we definitely have our super listeners. We know who you are. No, but we also have those folks who tune in because their friend or colleague has been featured, right? And what is the net effect of getting that one-time listener to become a regular listener, just and opt in and stay opted in.
Exactly. So getting back to the entrepreneur, right? I think, it would definitely more important to have the small group, 20, 30, 50, 100, 20, whatever it is.
Right.
And tweak your proposition based on that group. And get it right so that these people are truly using or consuming it.
That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, because
and then you grow from there, obviously.
Because and when you put it in the context of the investor conversation, the investor always wants to know what's the total available market, right? But the total available market's never available to everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So, what is actually the target market that you're able to do, and this even leads you to what is the hyper targeted market that you're able to do, and how effectively can you continue to engage them and keep them part of that. That's fascinating. I think, as we work with early stage entrepreneurs, getting them to, I can guarantee you that in any class that I convene, there's a handful of people who say my product's for everybody, and disabusing them of that, knowing that, everybody might actually try your product over the next 30 or 40 years. But first we have to kill it with this really small, highly targeted group of people who are dying for your product right now. And then the me's of the world, because I'm a laggard, like when you do the bell curve and there's the early adopters and there's the skeptical majority, right? I might come along after a while, but if you're marketing to me, you've got a long time to go, because I'm just not that in part of that market. Yeah. That's interesting. So as you put together a team and you think about what kind of talent you need on that team, we always talk to people about strengths and weaknesses and, finding people who help you fill in the gaps of where you are. Marketing is always one of those, either people think they can do it and they don't need expertise, right? Like, I know how to market. I know how to use Instagram, right? How hard could this digital marketing thing be,
Can't
right?
be that hard.
And I only need a few $1,000s, right? So there's all the...
I just put a website up.
All the... They're going to come. Once they know it's out there, they're going to come.
Right.
And other folks who that is their specialty, and they need to complement themselves with other experts that come there. What are some of have you run up against sort of what we would call those rookie mistakes or those rookie myths about what it takes to market a product and launch it, and who they need on their team, whether it's as a full-time member or a contractor, or what it really takes to market a new product or company?
All right, let me...
I know I threw a lot at you.
That's okay. No,
that's question stacking.
It's like processing.
That's quite okay. I mean, I found more success in talking about building the right team. I found more success in not hiring, let's say, experts, if you want, but more... because experts kind of know what's been in the past, in a way. And I've had more success in hiring curious people, people who are willing to go the extra mile too, who don't look at the clock, to kind of clock in and out, but who want to solve that problem that the startup has. So, because as you explore, you learn new ways. I mean, those are the people pioneering new ways, right? And if you have learning. What you need to know about marketing, you can do that. Or let's at least say you should have a good mix of people. Some that have the experience and then others who don't, and bring them together.
How do you hire for curiosity?
It is, I think, my one most important thing that I look in people. Obviously, nothing that can be reflected on a resume.
Right.
I mean, in my world, nobody gets hired just on a resume. In the creative, it's you have a portfolio.
Right.
That tells a lot. But then I'm always kind of starting my interview saying, like, what are you into? And that usually tells me right there a lot of what people do in their free time and whether they're curious or not.
Interesting.
I could think of a lot of bad responses to that when you say, what are you into?
You always take it there, my dear. You do. You always take it there.
But I think what's interesting is going back to you're bringing your entrepreneurial mind into this to say, I'm more interested in people that are curious. That's what we talk about with this podcast. It's not just about innovation and entrepreneurship. Innovation exists in any type of place that you're in. So from academia to corporate, it's those type of, I think, pieces of people that come into creating, I think, something that's worthwhile. It's the what did you call it? It was something
entrepreneurially curious.
Yeah, maybe that was your word. I thought it was a different word.
I think that's
coined.
what I've called. I think that's what I said before.
Yeah, but it's taking that component and realizing how does that integrate into your teams, because marketing and communications, you have to be creative, but I think working differently as well. How does that manifest in Manifest? I mean, when you all are creating different, not just campaigns, you said content, but experiences, working with that company. How do you guys do things different than Leo Burnett?
It's a full, completely different environment where it is all about innovating. And like I say, not chasing, the big campaigns, but more truly, innovative solutions that get traction. But I was gonna say that, the combination of these teams is really important, and we're trying to collaborate very, very strongly. And there's a risk a little bit of this bringing the left brains and the right brains together. Because I do think sometimes, like I said, the data informs the briefs, but then you let it go. Like if there's too much of the rational thinking that's bombarding a creative mind, you stifle it. So you got to create the room as well for creatives to flourish.
So is part of that you have to help the more analytical members of the team be able or comfortable with a higher level of risk than they might be, and the creatives perhaps to inform their work that in a way that actually de-risks it to a certain degree?
Yeah.
It's like balancing a risk portfolio.
Very, very, very true. Yeah.
Interesting. And we had touched on this briefly before, but I wanted to come back to it because we're talking about team building, that, who would trust you to lead, and why would anyone trust you to lead, and the work that Sebastian's been doing around that from an academic and instructional standpoint. It's interesting. I had a chance to meet with someone after the course was presented here in St. Louis locally, and he said, I wanted to go, but he actually kind of scared the crap out of me. And I said, why? And he's like, it spoke to the inner imposter syndrome. Every time I saw this flyer around the office, I thought, I don't know, why would anybody trust me to lead? And it created this certain sense of anxiety and around just like, why do you keep asking me that question? Go away.
Is there no one behind me when I'm trying to lead?
Damn it. Why are you looking into my soul? So what does it mean for you to ask people that question or to lead them on that journey, that conversation?
I think it came from me, looking for some answers in terms of leadership and kind of finding always similar stuff, leadership principles, references to, the armed forces, church, and sports, and I felt like not enough attention was given to the person itself, not just kind of skills you possess or whatever, but your emotional intelligence and how you come across. In your first encounter with people, but then also over time, because I think that the way that we think we are to the outside world is very different than how the outside world sees us. Well, there's definitely a discrepancy there.
Oh, sure.
And I wanted to kind of dive into that so that we as aspiring leaders can be more self-aware of what position we're playing in this world.
Absolutely.
And that makes one very vulnerable, right? That level of self-awareness and that introspection.
Yeah, I mean...
So you're not entirely shocked that my friend was really terrified by the question.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are definitely people who told me, like, this is the idea that we're spending the first 2 hours in a first impression exercise where you're putting yourself out there in front of strangers and they're going to tell you anonymously what they think of you. Because I got like this like 30 some questions or statements, and they say, yes, I agree, or no, not at all.
Right.
But I think that's really key when you talk about understanding and being self-aware, because it is a hallmark of a great leader. Because if you're aware of what, like you said, what your strengths and weaknesses are, it helps you to recognize how to build a strong team, because you want to build that team to actually balance your strengths with your weaknesses. And you can only do that if you're aware of what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah. One reason, or one thing I really talk about as well is that we all know that we should hire people smarter than us, right? It's a thing that...
Most people know that.
Right, well,
we know that that's what we're recommended to do.
Right.
But then I make the point, we also should be hiring people that are just better than us, not just smarter, like in the whole sense, right? I mean, really good professionals or people that are bound to be amazing, value to your company. But these amazing people will not follow you if you have too many deficits in your leadership abilities.
Right.
They're going to walk away.
Right.
They're going to maybe walk away after the interview, because they're just not impressed.
Right.
And I think that's really important to understand, that you have to consistently work on yourself to become better, so you can actually hire and retain better talent.
Would you put that in a category of like a personal brand, or is that sort of a twisting of the concept of that level of self-awareness and how you're perceived by the people who you want to lead?
I'm not sure what...
Well, I think that there's conversation about sort of the brand you build when you build a company or a product, but then there's people who are in and of themselves their own brand. In some cases, some would say, well, I built my personal brand, who I am and what my mission is in the world, right? And then I built this company that happened, to which I transferred this brand out there. Is there a corollary there?
Well, the thing, brands are very rarely authentic, right? So if you build your personal brand, that doesn't mean that brand is who you truly are, right? So you have that personal brand of the leader.
I guess what I was trying to get at.
So you have the personal leader brand, you have the brand of the company, and then you have who you actually are as a leader.
Interesting.
Right? And
so this isn't a branding exercise. When you're doing this course, this is really about the third. This is about understanding who you really are as a leader.
Exactly.
Leadership.
You know how much I talk about authenticity, credibility, magnetism.
Can you build an authentic personal brand? Or once you put brand in there, does that change the dynamic?
Of course you can. Yeah. I mean, the best brands today are the ones that are transparent and therefore authentic. I mean, the ones that are not shy of having a point of view and putting it out there. Those are the better brands, like Patagonia or whatever, Right.
So in knowing who I am as an authentic leader, and knowing who I am when I want to lead, and then projecting that, not so much building a brand around that, but being transparent about who I am and how I lead.
Yeah.
That is the brand that I'm putting out there.
In an early startup scenario, people get excited maybe about a vision that somebody lays out, but they're really just going to join that company if they truly believe in that leader.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, it's the same with investors. It's for everything. So you have to work on yourself and be self-aware again, to
and
not
authentic.
Project the wrong thing. Exactly.
Like you talked about, authenticity, I think, is key. You can't create authenticity. You can only be who you are.
Right. But you have to be self-aware of, how what you think you are actually projects out to others. So you need to know that so you can, get this feedback to then maybe make some adjustments that are still authentic to you.
But I guess my point is you can't come in here and say, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to be this because this is what I think people want me to be. If that's not part of your authenticity, it's going to be quickly seen as this is not authentic.
Opportunistic.
Absolutely.
And
not what other people want you to be like. You have to, I think, understand what kind of leader you want to be, given the references of other leaders out there maybe, and then self-reflect of who you are compared to that person. And maybe there's a pathway.
What's the gap, right?
That you can take. And that's why, I teach this course because I think there are tips and tricks and even shortcuts or whatever, to get there.
Right.
Amazing.
And I find it, I've been working on my own website because now when, folks are like, who are you and what are you doing? I'm like, this thing called Purpose First Advisors, what is it and who is it and out there? Getting really clear on who you are and then being unafraid to put it out there, knowing that not everyone is going to like that, right?
Not everybody likes Gary Vaynerchuk.
Not everybody does, right? But he is authentic. He says what his truth is, and he presents it the way he believes he needs to present it, right? I always consider myself pretty self-aware, but this process has definitely been not only a coming to terms with who is my target customer, right? And really speaking to them, which means speaking about who I am and why I am in a position to be of good service to them. But knowing that will also eliminate an entire segment of people who don't see themselves reflected in that. And that really does go back to, I think there is this underlying fear of like, some people won't like me or my company or my product. And you know what? That's okay.
Exactly. And people quit people. People don't quit companies.
Right.
So if you have a strong personality, and you're not even attracting the ones who don't like you, great, because you don't want them because they're going to quit, if they really find out who you are.
So there's a lot to explore, right?
So once that mask comes off.
Wow, and you know how good I am at faking, right?
Take that mask
off. I wasn't talking about you.
No, but I think bringing it back, I did attend Sebastian's course, but also just reflecting on all the intersections here, right, of how you build your team, how you choose to lead, what you say about yourself and how you present yourself in the world, how people perceive you and what that means bottom line in really who you get to work with and the work you get to do, whether you're doing that as your own business owner or you're doing that as part of somebody else's team. All of that is intersecting all at once.
There are a lot more important things than reflecting upon your own leadership persona, but so few of us take a day, like a workshop, for example, to just dedicate to that. And I think that's something that's important, and I think that's something. And
you know what? It's not just entrepreneurship, because many corporations are incorporating this into interview processes to take people through an opportunity where they can see them interact and solving real time problems, but at the same time they're looking at their leadership qualities. How do people assess them?
Yeah, how do they show up?
Right. So it's not just from building teams, but it's potentially being hired to be on a team, and these processes are showing up in hiring processes, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. And amazingly, as we always do, we wrap up our time together very
always
quickly.
Run out of time.
I know we do, and even Shu's given us the countdown, and I know we even went a little overtime.
Right. He started over.
But with that being said, Sebastian, do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners on entrepreneurship or leadership or just creativity in general? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, not at all. I think I just want to reiterate what I said before. It's just taking a little bit of time to reflect upon how you're out there in the world, how you're perceived, how you feel about yourself. I talk a lot about also truly feeling good in your own skin, which will then reflect out truly as confidence. We talk about spirituality a little bit, meditation, those kind of things, and it's really important. And we normally don't take the time to check ourselves out a little
Absolutely.
bit. And I think it's important.
So it's amazing that you stayed awake in this room, because this is where he normally does his
meditation. I told you wouldn't meditate. We're not calming. We're so not calming. But thank you for carving out some time in your schedule to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's fun. Thank you very much.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's Entrepreneurially Thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.